Well, hey everybody, it's Romania Black, and we're on episode 10 of March Comes In Like a Lion. And oh my gosh, last episode we had Rei. He won his match against this old man that he had been led to believe was going to cause him all this emotional strife. But our boy Rei, he not only won the match, he not only made friends with this old man, he not only convinced him to not retire from Shogi, but he called that bitch Kiyoko up and gave her what for and was like, hey, you're not going to emotionally manipulate me today. I'm going to end the day on a good note. But if it were up to me, I would have Kyouko go away for a while. She rubs me the wrong way. And here's the thing about her character. She's very much a love to loathe character. I describe those type of characters as she's very well written. She's very relatable, but she's just the worst, and I can't stand her because of how real she is. Like, I have met my fair share of Kyokos, and I, in my adulthood, have found ways to avoid people like Kyoko because they're toxic, manipulative, and nothing ever goes good with them. So you might as well just stay away. I feel like this episode from last week and the week before should be good signs of people to avoid. Avoid someone like Kiyoko because they're probably not worth your time, and they'll try to drag you down into the depths of their despair with them, and life ain't worth that. But here's my thing. I don't judge people that like characters that I don't like because it's a fictional world. We don't have to all like the same characters. I think Nikaido's a saint. I wish he was in every episode, but I'm sure some people don't like him. They don't like his optimism, whatever. What's up with you all? But I think he's a great character. But maybe if you didn't like him, that's fine. But there are a surprisingly number of people that like Kiyoko, and I'm like, and some of them don't just like her because she's a well-written character, which I'm like, cool, she is. She's interesting. Some people are like, I just love how toxic she is. I'm like, you've never been around someone like Kiyoko, have you? You won't like them in real life. Or are you a Kiyoko? That's immediately where my mind goes. I'm like, ooh, I don't know how I feel about this. But she is definitely a character that I would like to follow on a journey if she fixes herself. What I don't want this series to do is to make it to where Rei has to be the one to fix her. That's not Rei's responsibility. Kiyoko needs to fix herself, and she needs to take responsibility for her actions, fix herself, and become a better person. I don't like the concept that it has to be Rei's responsibility. Rei's doing good just to take care of himself. Why does he have to babysit her? She does not need him to do that, and she won't leave him alone. But I think the other thing with her character is, before we start, I had some people comment, like, if the way that she is because of her parents. And look, as a teacher, I am a huge advocate for students. Usually whenever someone of an older generation, when they're like, oh, the Gen Z kids these days, they're just lazy, or those kids these days don't know what to do, my first response to them is usually, well, they were raised a certain way. And what about their parents? Do we let their parents get off without any responsibility? Like, there has to be some responsibility there. And while we don't know the mom at all at this point, we do know that Kyoko's dad is negligent. He's a bit manipulative himself, and he's a piece of work. So I do think there is a lot of reasoning behind her actions that tie back to her parents and that tie back to how she was raised. However, at some point in your life, you can't blame mommy and daddy anymore for how you are. You have to take responsibility for your actions. And Kyoko's at that point. She's at that point where she's a young adult. She's making decisions on her own. Should her parents be involved and give her a stern talking to? Yeah. But also, I don't think that Kiyoko can just be like, well, it's my mom and dad's fault that I'm this way, and then be a complete asshole. I don't think you can do that. You have to there is consequence to your actions, and she needs to own up to it. And I'm hoping that someone, at this point, I think what bugs me about her character the most is she's getting no comeuppance. That's why last week's episode was so satisfying. No one's getting on to her. She's able to go wherever she wants, be a complete bitch, be a complete awful person to people, and she gets away with it because she's, one, a Nepo baby whose dad's a professional shogi player and they don't want to get on his bad side, and two, because she's pretty. If she didn't have a professional shogi player daddy and she was ugly, I bet people wouldn't care for her character. Sorry, but I think that's true. I think the fact that she's attractive and she has some nepotism with her dad is the only reason she's getting off scot-free. Any other situation, I think she'd get yelled at. And I think that's just the truth of the matter. And I want her to get yelled at. I want her to get comeuppance and be like, you need to stop and take care of yourself and quit worrying about other people. But what can we do? So she just rubs me the wrong way, and I would rather watch this series without her. But I have a feeling that because we are letting Rei grow and become a better person, he's going to have to go through trials and tribulations, and she's going to be the main hurdle in his existence. And I just hope that someone eventually gives her some comeuppance and that she faces consequences for her actions. Because right now, I don't think she's doing that. But, and I'm sure some people are going to try to comment with things that happen later on in the series that are going to prove me wrong. I'm not going to read those comments, obviously. My mod's going to check those. But I'm fully aware that some things may happen with her character that make me change my mind about her and go, oh, well, I forgive her character. She's willing to go on, whatever. But I want her character to prove it. I want to see it for myself, and I want to see the story give it to me. So we'll just have to see. I just hate her character. She may be one of the least liked characters I've experienced in anime in a long time, and I could just do without her. I think just get out, shoo shoo. I don't care if she's well written because I've experienced characters like her in real life. I don't need to see a well written character like her. I know what they are like. You can't write them any more real than you have her now. So, but we're not gonna waste any more time. We're gonna dive in and see what happens this episode. Maybe she won't be there, but she probably will. But we're going to find out here in 3, 2, 1, and let's go. Oh, that episode made me want to scream at times at the beginning. So when Rei has his moment to scream at the end, I was like right there with him. I was like, Rei, you have that cathartic moment. You let all those feelings out. You finally get to say your piece because you are so justified. Man, oh, what an episode. Of course, right as I get done bitching about Kiyoko, what does she do? She shows up. So I want to talk about her and kind of the theme of this moment with Rei kind of saying like, F you, y'all, get better, quit involving me in your problems. I really hope that at some point, I don't condone violence, but that girl, she just needs to get slapped across the face one time, just one time, and to be like, wake the frick up. And then I think she'll be fine. I think she's like one of those kids who, I don't know. I mean, the dad has clearly gotten on to her. She's gotten grounded, whatever, but let's talk about this episode and just break it down chronologically and go through it. So we have Rei minding his own business, enjoying the sunlight. I do like at the beginning, we see that he has the windows open. He's letting the sunlight in. Rei is trying to help himself. He's trying to further himself. He's doing the work. He's practicing. He's eating. He has the sunlight in. He's not drowning himself in his sorrows. He's trying to do the work. I feel a little bit weirded out that we haven't seen Nikaido in a while, so I hope he's okay. But I feel like this episode and then the 2 episodes, like episodes 8 through 10 are like the Rei realizing that he's tired of people's bullshit arc. It's like Rei being like, leave me alone. Let me work through my problems and quit adding on to them. But I like that Rei is being healthy in how he's practicing and he's at least trying, right? Now, the stuff that Kiyoko does with the watch is classic manipulative psychological bullshit. She left that watch there. It's like, it's what abusive lovers do to people that are trying to get away from them. They just leave little bits and pieces there so they have an excuse to either go get the watch or to have him bring it to her, meet up with him. Like, that's some psychological mind game shit right there. And that's exactly why she pulled it. If it was so important and the watch was so special, she wouldn't have left it. But she did it intentionally. Let's be real. And then she throws on that bullshit story about how her boyfriend that gave it to her gets really mad when she doesn't wear it. Well, 1, red flag of an abusive boyfriend. Might want to get out of that. 2, why are you throwing that at Rei? What do you want Rei to do? Try to defend you again? Leave him out of it. It's not his business. It's your business. And I'm like, 3, I bet if you went home to daddy, he'd take you back in his house and then the abusive boyfriend wouldn't come back for you. So that's my thing. She like doesn't want to stay home with her father, which I get it. They don't have a good relationship. I get it. But if my options were go home to my family where I'm safe or stay with an abusive boyfriend, I think I'd know the answer to that question. But again, we don't know enough about Kiyoko to know exactly, like, is he even abusive? Is she lying to him? She could be lying for all we know. Although I feel like the fact that he got in a fight with Rei does show that he probably is abusive. But I'm like, then just go back to your dad. Go back home. If you don't like your dad, then just talk to your mom. I'm like, which we'll get to that. But yeah, I like that she is just this torrential rainfall a storm there blowing in the breeze, and there's all these cool colors that surround her. And I like that Ray's like just gives her the watch back. What's interesting is that the color of Ray's scarf is the same color as his like cardigan that was given to him by his foster dad, so it's a constant reminder. But stuff that Kyoko does is very annoying. Like when she's like, "Oh, I got a cold. It's all your fault." I'm like, "It's not his fault that you got the cold. Quit being a little whiny brat. Stop it. It's not healthy. It's not attractive." And he's like, "I told you to wait in front." And the thing about it is there was no, she's so self-destructive because he's like, "I wanted to meet you at the station." She's like, "Oh no, it's too noisy there. I can't manipulate and verbally abuse you if we're in front of people who might get on to me." That's the thing. She doesn't want to face consequences of her actions. So she lures Ray to a place where they're by themselves and she can verbally abuse him and physically like get up in his business and harass him. And no one's there to call her out on it. And she doesn't think that Ray is going to stand up for himself and not take it. So it's very frustrating because she's doing it all intentionally. She's cornering Ray and isolating him so that she can abuse him, is essentially what it is. And Ray didn't ask for this. There's no reason for her to do this. She's also kind of a stalker because she stalks out all of his meetings and where they are and who they're with. She's a stalker, so she's clearly obsessed with him for no reason. And I like that she says, "I could have just gone to your place." And he's like, "No." And I'm glad that Ray at that point is like, "Hell to the no, absolutely not." And he's like, "Why are you like this?" And he's just like, "Why?" And she's like, "Oh, well, let me guess what you were just thinking." And then she gets all up in his business, there's no reason. She's like, "Oh, I'm just joking. You look so scary there." And I'm like, "No, you assaulted him. Leave him alone." And then she like tries to play coy and she asks him what he's doing for New Year's and if he's coming back home. And he's like, "No, I'm practicing for matches." And she's like, "Oh, matches? Why don't you just give that up?" And she's like, "Your last match is on the 24th, so there's no reason for you not to come home." But I'm like, what's so crazy is, one, you don't even live at home anymore. So why do you care if Ray comes home? You don't even like your dad. So why do you care if he comes back? You're not going to be there. You're with your boyfriend, right? So why does it matter? Are you going to go home? If you're going to go home, then why don't you just get away from your boyfriend that's abusive and go back home and stay home and just tell your dad there's some guy after you? I'm sure he wouldn't like that. I'm like, girl, she's just making problems for herself that don't need to be there. And then she's like, "Oh, speaking of your person, it seems he's finally getting a divorce." I'm like, why you guys spill the tea and get all up in everybody's business? And why are you telling Ray this? He doesn't care about this. And she's like, "Well, he's usually meek and modest, but when he loses, he drinks, gets crazy, and gambles." Well, that's not Ray's fault. I'm glad that Ray at the end is like, him practicing and making himself better. It is not Ray's problem if other people self-destruct. And if other people are using him as an excuse, that's on them, not on Ray. And that's dumb. So yeah, if you're a sore loser, then get better or quit. There's like, don't blame other people for your misfortune. And I think when she said, "Oh, I feel sorry for his daughter the most," she must have been so scared. I'm like, her trying to use that psychological war game against Ray to like, because she's trying to compare herself with her father to this guy and his daughter living under the same roof with a man who breaks bad every time he loses. I'm like, her dad may be a douche, but I don't think he's abusive in that same respect, right? And the thing that kills me about this conversation is Ray saying how much he hates it and he can't stand it. And he's like, the way she speaks, her words sticking like glue. He's like, he hates how much it affects him, how much her words get to him. And the worst part is, he's like, "I hate myself for wanting to hear it." Like she's poisoned him so much that it's like Stockholm syndrome. He feels like he's stuck in an abusive relationship with her and he can't get away from her. Like I said, there's a couple in Given that it's the same relationship, but they're in like a romantic relationship. And it's really bad. And they kind of like end up, it's like that song Style by Taylor Swift. It's like we keep going round and round and round, even though she's a foster sister and not a girlfriend. But it's this abusive relationship and Ray's stuck in it. I'm hopeful that him lashing out and crying out at the end of this episode is maybe a sign that he's like, fuck her. I don't want to deal with her anymore. she needs to leave me alone. Because I wish that he would just say this to her. Because yeah, I'm like, girl, there's a lot with the dad, and we're going to talk about the dad here in a little bit. But I'm like, you're 17 at least. You're 17 years old. You're about to be a young adult. You're about to move out on your own if you're not out on your own already. At this point, either get better at shogi and practice and get better and do what you will with that, or quit shogi but leave Rei alone. Rei has nothing to do with it. Like, this is my thing with this whole scene, because I hate that he's like in a Stockholm syndrome moment with her. I'm like, you don't need her. And she's like, oh, come to think of it, it was different for you. When she said you chose your own parents, I'm like, bitch, his parents died. He wouldn't have been with you all if his parents didn't die in a horrific car accident and none of his other family would take him. So I'm like, first of all, step off, bitch. You don't even know what you're saying. And second, she's like, well, you got to choose your dad. Now, we had this whole scene with the Merry Christmas point, and she had the teddy bear, and he got the Game Boy, and he got the Game Bomb, or whatever, which is literally a Game Boy, and Rei got the shogi pieces, right? Which he does seem... Here's the thing. Rei claims not to like shogi. He doesn't like it, but he has this blush and like look on his face when he gets the pieces, right? He doesn't act indifferent when he gets the game. He acts like he likes it and he enjoys it. So it's like, does Rei really hate shogi, or does he acknowledge it as part of his being and it's more than just liking it or disliking it? It's whether or not it's connected to him. Is that it? Or like, what do we, if he doesn't like it, does he just view it as that connection to his foster dad that kind of bridges that gap from his real father passing to this? Now, in respect to Kiyoko, Kiyoko seems very upset that she didn't get it. And then he says in that moment, when he gets it, because Kiyoko looks upset, for a child of this family and a Yuma, or anyone striving to be a professional shogi player, these pieces, the value of these beautiful pieces and their meaning, their father's feelings, were unmistakable. Now, is the dad absolutely awful for getting the foster child the shogi set and not the other two? Yeah. His dad is a total asshole for doing that, because he clearly knows what he was setting up with them, right? And if he was trying to set up this competitive nature with his children, and the foster child being like, well, if you two cared as much about shogi and practice as much as Rei, maybe I would have given you a board game. That's messed up too. That's so messed up. So the dad is 1000% in the wrong for doing this, for setting up not only a falsely competitive situation that's toxic in itself. Like, Kiyoko gets that toxicity from her dad, I'm sure. She just amps it up to an 11. But what we don't see, I wish we could have seen if the kids spoke up and were like, where's our shogi board? Now, if the dad was like, well, if you get good enough, maybe you'll get your own, then that's fucked up and messed up too. And I don't blame Kiyoko for being mad in this instance. And Kiyoko seems to harbor all of this insecurity and anger towards Rei because she believes that he unlawfully got their father's love that she wasn't able to get, and she's having like dad issues because of it. I get it. I get why she'd be pissed, and I get why she would try to take her anger and aggression out on Rei. Is it right? No, she's just furthering a vicious cycle. But I'm like, also, girl, at this point, Rei is off doing his own thing. He's living by himself. He's away from your family. At this point, either get to be a better shogi player and if you're so dead set on your father loving you and you don't know what to do, maybe take all the time and energy you're spending on looking up Rei's matches, who he's facing, and researching all that, and apply it to yourself and get better at shogi yourself, and then earn that love that you're so desperately craving on your own terms, and quit trying to pass your guilt off to Rei. Maybe do that. Maybe fix yourself and make yourself better than trying to tear other people down, if that's what you're wanting. And if you don't give a shit about what your dad thinks of you, then leave Rei alone and go do something else. But she's just like this little puddle of quicksand that you just get trapped in her, and then you just sink further and further into despair, and there's no hope of getting out because she doesn't give a shit. So I'm just like, stop. Leave him alone, damn it. Leave him the frick alone. And he's like, should I have gotten you a toy too? And I don't think it helps that in their living room are all these shogi toys and all these shogi trophies in the background. That doesn't help at all, like presenting this image. So yes, the father is messed up and a big contributor to the problem. But she needs to, I want Rei at some point to yell at her and be like, fix yourself or get out. Fix your, what's the David Lynch quote? Fix your hearts or die. That's like that's his quotation. Either fix your heart, make yourself a better person, or get out. Nobody's got time for you if you're going to be just toxic. And he's like, how my foster brother and sister were very hurt then. Yeah. And that's why the dad is so awful. It makes sense that they were hurt, but that's not Rei's fault. It's not Rei's fault that he got in with this family and the dad took a liking to him. That's the dad's fault, but not Rei's. So she needs to be taking her anger and aggression out on her dad, not Rei. I hate it. And she just tries to play this psychological mind game with him. And I'm like, girl, you need to stay away from him and he needs to stay away from you. I can't stand her. I'm like, girl, if you know what the problem is, fix it. Fix your hearts or die. So then we come back to the school with the teacher saying, apart from music and PE, can't imagine Rei being someone that's athletic in that regard. He's like, you showed up at the bare minimum. And he's like, don't you need to go to your match by 9:30? It's like 8:25. You got an hour to get there. And he talks about him being busy. And he's like, you have matches up until closing ceremonies. And he's like, you barely met the required attendance. So be careful next semester that you don't miss too many matches for the term. And he's like, my living is on the line. Are you telling me to lose? Because he's like, yeah, I can't live, on my own if I don't win these matches. And he's like, after the closing ceremony today, the kids in the class are having a Christmas party. Did you know about it? And he's like, of course I didn't. I've not been here. I've been at matches. And he's like, I like that whenever Rei is around the teacher, he's like, has this like falsely like polite being like, please don't tell me, please stop, leave me alone. He just tries to be polite and pass it off. It's very passive aggressive. And then, of course, the teacher's like, well, I'm frustrated too because nobody invited me. Why? And they're like, because you're a teacher. You don't get invited to the class parties. I kind of feel a little bit bad for the teacher. He doesn't have any friends. So Rei's like his only pal. And he's like, just us crummy guys. We could eat cake while playing shogi if you stuck around. And then he's like, I turn around and he's gone. And then he's like, no, wait a minute. That means I'm just a mean old teacher. And he's like, oh no. I think the oh no was hilarious. And Sakurai, who voices him, did such a good job with that. That was hilarious. So yeah, then Rei asks, when did Christmas become painful for me? Well, probably after that moment that you got the shogi board and they didn't. And he's like, a certain thought crossed my mind. It's like a report card from that year. In that year, how much love did I receive from my friends, family, and my parents? And look, I do feel sorry for Ayumu and for Kiyoko not getting the love from their dad that they clearly deserve. I feel for them. But Ayumu we don't know about because he's kind of off on his own. But Kiyoko just taking all of her frustration and anger out on Rei is uncalled for. Rei is not the reason why. Again, it goes back to the idea of you can't blame your bad decisions on other people. Because it's like, you made those decisions in the end. The dad made the decision to give the shogi board to Rei. Rei didn't ask for it. It's just what he got. So if you're mad about it, be mad at the person who gave the shogi board, not the person that received it. And I feel for Rei. How did they express that love for me? I want Rei to spend New Year's with the sisters and not with the other family. And then we have the one guy who has the Christmas gift with him as he goes to the match. Ugh. And she's like, well, Rei, I'm glad Rei didn't throw the match. I'm glad he didn't throw the match because no, there's no reason why he should throw it. He should not have to. And here's the thing. I keep waiting for them to talk about like the idea of throwing the match, like how insulting that is to the other player. because the idea that you just threw a match so that they win by default, that's kind of insulting. It's insulting to their pride. It's insulting to their skill. It's suggesting, oh, you're beneath me, so I have to lose for you to win and be successful. Like there's no honor in that at all. And for Kiyoko to suggest that just shows how little honor she has towards herself or the activity. But Rei has that honor, and he wants. I love that he says there's a beast within him fighting for survival. I think that's true of everyone. I think everyone has that beast inside of them that's like, it's fight or flight. And I love that he basically says, like, when it comes to fight or flight, some people run away and they fly away, but I'm going to fight. He's like, I am fight, not flight. And he's like, I'm self-aware of that. That's how I am. And I'm going to claw my way to the top, even if I have to knock people down to get there. And part of me thinks that Kiyoko, what she wants is for Rei to become like her father so that she can go, see, you're just like my dad. This is why this is happening. I feel like she wants to make Rei like her dad so it can justify for her why things are the way that they are. But the fact of the matter is Rei is not like her dad. And I think that that's bugging her a lot because she's kind of dependent upon that narrative to justify why things are the way that they are for her. So let's talk about this match. This match, these poor shogi players look like the most miserable people ever. They're just like, let's have a good game. Like, they all just look miserable. And I don't think it helps that there's these, like, cool, like, winter tones throughout the episode. And it's so quiet and calm. This episode was so intense, but it was also so just, like, almost frozen. It was so cold, atmospheric-wise, and very chill and calm and collective. And it just had that feeling of like a winter air sorting through. And the way that the piano music was sprinkled throughout, the way that it built to a crescendo, the way that the boozy horns, since he's an alcoholic, the boozy horns coming in, like, it was all so well done. Like, the match was so intense. And yet this series doesn't draw it out. It's just like, he lost. But I like that they kind of do like the post-game review where they go back and show how he lost and did that at the very end. It was really, really well done. I loved that. I just loved that as you went through, you could kind of see. And I think my favorite part about the whole thing was the representation of the bottles. At the very end of the match, you see Yasui, his bottle, like one bottle's knocked over, the other one, they're both empty. There's like droplets of drink everywhere, and it's a mess, showing that he couldn't keep his composure. He couldn't keep his cool. He didn't maintain control. And then you cut back over to Rei, and it's the perfect bottles side by side in perfect, calm, collected format. I love it. I can see why Miura, the creator of Berserk, likes this series, because this series likes to put its character Rei through the ringer, just like Guts and Berserk. Like, Rei is pushed through the ringer. It is almost unsettling. I like this. The title Something Given ties back to like something borrowed, something given. And he's like, you want to say I gave up in the middle of the match, don't I? Don't you? And it's like, well, but you kind of did. The thing that gets me is that he leaves the gift behind. He leaves the gift that was meant for his daughter, like, almost intentionally. And I think one for Rei, he's just sitting there like, but dude, Rei's lost his biological family and he's experienced trauma with his adoptive family. And he's like, you have a gift for your daughter. Why wouldn't you bring it to her? Like, do you not care about her? Like, even if you lost the match, you should still give her the gift. And Rei is all about, you should savor the precious things that you have because you don't know when you're going to lose them. Right? And that kind of transcribes over to Nikaido with his disease and everything there, like the idea of savoring these moments and these connections with these people. The thing is, Rei is being challenged by being encountered by people who take those for granted, like this man. And that encounter where Rei takes the gift and he runs to take the gift back to the man, that was so intense, because when he's like, oh, I've never seen it before. I've never seen that gift. And like the storm inside Rei, you can just see the anger bubbling up in Rei where he's like, what do you mean you didn't see this? This is for your daughter. Don't you care about her? Like, I was considering throwing a match, but I was going to consider throwing a match to you who don't even care about your daughter if you lose. Like, what's up with that? That's messed up. And the moment where he grabs it and gets angry, like, that part was so intense. Where he just snatches it away. He's like, shut up already. And he said, "This was our last Christmas." Like he's trying to shove it back on Rei and make him feel guilty. Oh. And I like that Rei, he has that moment where he's like, I was doing something nice and I was doing a nice gesture. Why did you get mad at me? It's not my fault. And I like how he starts where he's walking back. This is like, by the way, the emptiest city in the world. There's like nobody walking around ever. The streets are constantly empty. And I know it's all supposed to be symbolic and metaphorical and supposed to represent how Rei feels isolated and alone in the world right now. But realistically, there'd be somebody on them streets. And then him looking at the birds as they fly overhead and realizing that these birds are free and they can do whatever they want. But Rei is not free. He's tethered down to this world and he has to play Shogi to go forward. He has to play Shogi to keep this wheel moving. He started this journey and now he has to end it. I love when he starts running. I thought for a second, I had two feelings when he started running. My first feeling was he was running back and going to face Kiyoko, and I didn't want that. I didn't want him to run to Kiyoko. She's like the last person I want him to see. My other thought was maybe he was running to Akari or Hina to find a familiar face, to seek solace. Maybe he was going to run into Nikaido. But I love all the shots of scenery as we see him walk by. And then when he gets like I love the shot of him running through the forest. It's almost like he's been stuck in this moment, running through the forest, trapped in this like forest of thistles and thorns, and he doesn't know what to do. And he finally reaches his breaking point. And I just love that he takes this moment to scream out into the void and just yelling. Like he needed to get that out of his system. He needed, like Rei's always been so polite and kind. He needed to just let all of that emotion out and let it be heard. Like that needed to happen. And him saying, is everything my fault? What should I have done? And there is no answer. You shouldn't have done anything different. And he's like, go to hell. It's your own fault for being weak. Yeah, you lost because you were weak. And he's like, practice. I can tell when you don't. Like, I love that there's like a little tiny hint of an elitist vibe with Rei here because he's right. Rei's like, I practice so much, I can tell when you don't. So when you get mad at me for beating you, sorry, I'm good. Deal with it. It's kind of one of those things like I competed competitively in public speaking and I coach it now. And we went to nationals and I had a couple students that were kind of not happy with how they placed and they were being a little sore about it. And they're like, but it's not fair that I didn't win and I didn't win the round and it's not fair. And a couple of them, I was like, yeah, but I saw your times. You were under time. You went too fast. And we've been practicing on you speaking slower and you didn't speak slow enough. And they're like, well, that shouldn't matter. And I'm like, no, that's all it takes. Like, if you didn't want that to happen, you should have made sure you practiced enough where it wouldn't happen. And that's the same thing that Rei is saying here. He's like, if you're not good and you know you got a deficit, practice, 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 and work. If it matters that much to you, then practice. Or if you're going to bitch about it, then quit. He's like, if you say I know but I can't, then just quit. He's like, then don't come. For me, he's like, everything is on the line because I don't have anything else. And that part killed me, him crying and screaming that, because it's like, Rei, it's not that he's doing it for fun. He's doing it because he's like, I started Shogi because I didn't want to end up in an orphanage. And now I keep on doing it because I don't know what else to do. And I have to do it to survive. I have to do it to live on my own. I have to do it to keep the promise to myself. I have to do it so that I don't have to stay in that home and make Kyoko and Ayumu's lives worse, even though they don't seem to recognize that Rei's working to do that. So I just want to give Rei the biggest hug at this point. He's like, nothing but Shogi. He's like, don't drink booze to escape. I have no use for weak players. Yeah. And then he just falls. Oh, I thought he was going to catch himself, or I was hoping like Nikaido reached out his hand and grabbed him in that moment. But no, he hits. In the words of Valentina, he fell. And he fell hard, bitch. Just landing there in the dirt. He might have even landed on the concrete. Oh, our boy. Oh, him just crying in that moment. I mean, the way they animated this entire moment with the sound and the movement, everything, it's so beautiful. But him like picking himself back up and him just like gathering himself. And he's like, if you're going to run away, if you can run away, then why? Yeah, he's like, if it's fight or flight, and if you have the ability to run away, then why are you still here? What's bringing you back? Oh, I love this scene so much. He's like, I said I had no reason to fight, but the truth is that I know a beast lives within me that's competitive. He's like, it's a beast that would bite off everything in sight to survive. And here's the thing, like, I feel like Kiyoko has that same beast within her too, but rather than her work towards bettering herself and kind of sharpening that sword that exists, it's like instead of doing that, she's got a dull rusty dagger that she's just thrusting out at everybody instead. Rather than helping herself, she's just trying to tear other people down. And that's stupid. And I'm glad that Rei calls it out. He's like, quit being dumb, improve yourself, quit trying to tear other people down. And he's like, I would bite off everything in sight to survive. When the battle begins, no matter what, its hand reaches out towards the path of survival, even if it means misery for others, no matter what kind of world awaits. But here's the thing. That's any type of competition. And that's life. That's life. Everyone is going to be in a competition at some point in life, and somebody's going to win and somebody's going to lose. And it's the question of what do you do with your losses and how do you respond to it? I'm glad that we've reached the checkpoint in the series where Rei has self-identified that he is a competitive person. He wants to win, and he's willing to do whatever it takes to win because that's just how he is. I'm glad he's realized that. So now the question is going to be that he needs to know that it's okay to feel that way. It's all right to want to win. And it's all right that others are going to suffer if you beat them in a game. They're going to find a way to either improve themselves or get away from the game and move on in some other fashion, right? Shogi is not life or death in reality. It's just what do you do with the wins and what do you do with the losses. The show that replaced this was called Blue Lock, that was about football or soccer. And a huge theme of that series was talking about it's okay to be competitive. It's okay to want to win. And it's okay to want to win and have others lose. That's okay in sports. That's okay in life. It's what do you do with your losses? How do you grow from them? How do you improve and better yourself and come back stronger the next time? Right? And I think that Rei, is kind of taking from that Blue Lock mentality that he's had these losses, and these losses have opened his eyes to the idea that he doesn't like losing. And so he's like, well, how do I not lose next time? And he's working towards that. But it's opened up Rei's eyes to realize that he doesn't like losing. He wants to keep on competing and he wants to get better and better, but he understands that there's a process and he knows what he has to do. So yeah, the end of this episode was so gorgeous. I loved it so much. I loved it so much. I'm really excited for the next episode, but I feel like this is a checkpoint in Rei's journey, and I'm glad he's like self-actualized in this moment. It's really good. Oh my gosh. I want Kiyoko. Hear me out. I give Kiyoko a hard time. I don't like her. I was just so mad at her in this episode because I'm just like, get the fudge away from him. But the reality is, I do want her to become better. I want her to stand up to her father. I want her to either enjoy Shogi or move on from it. I just don't like that she's trying to verbally and abusively take Rei down with her. Like she's in a sinking ship and she's trying to grab Rei and drag her down with her into the depths. She needs to instead reach for a lifeline rather than try to drag someone down with her. And maybe her character will develop and change over the course of this series. We'll just have to see. So, in any case, I'm very curious to hear your thoughts down below. I really liked this episode. It was so quiet, but so intense. So, I hope y'all have a wonderful week. Please stay safe, take care, and yeah, I'm back real soon with episode 11 of March Comes In Like a Lion. Bye.